So yeah, I mean, you got your flow chart for chases at Haydock.
Hello and welcome along to GG Weekend Watch with myself, Kate Tracey, alongside Andrew Mount and Dave Young. And we hopefully, all things considered, have racing this weekend. I don't want to jinx it just in case last minute things change. But on the back of what has felt like we haven't had racing forever, hopefully we have some races to go at. So we haven't really got anything to recap in terms of results from last week's show, but guaranteed we would have found all the winners anyway. And Hitman, as Andrew said before recording, would have finished second or the same, and he'll probably do so again. Right, we have 7 races to go at from Ascot and Haydock on the afternoon televised schedule on ITV. So lads, we'll get straight into it. At Ascot with the 140, the Grade 2 Mares Hurdle, otherwise known as the Warfield. 4-year-olds and over just shy of 2 miles. Kargese is the 8-13 favourite for Willie Mullins coming over here. Paul Townend as well, Dave. So does she just win?
Possibly and probably. She's got that good form, isn't she, from last season behind both Sagino and Majborough that are now vying for favouritism for an Arkle as 5-year-olds. So that looks pretty strong. She can be quite keen in her races, but although she got beat first time up when she was keen doing it and she was a bit keen behind Sagino, they're still pretty good efforts in doing that. So that'd be the only slight, I guess, sort of question mark. But it's smart placement from Willie because she had an entry in the Irish Champion Hurdle. They've opted to come over here, so she gets to run over 2 miles. She gets to run in a Grade 2. She gets to run against 130s horses. She's odds-on favourite. She'll pick up more money for this than if she'd have come second in Irish Champion Hurdle. So I beg the question, why did Fergal O'Brien not even look with Dysart Enos for a race like this when they're just going to send her over to the Dublin Racing Festival? But good luck to them in there. This race is a no bet for me because Kargese should win this. The fact that she's been keen, she could do that again. So that's a slight temperament of enthusiasm, but I do think she'll still win this race. If she's not keen and she's sort of settled down, then Lord knows just how good she might be. But I'd expect a pretty impressive performance from her in here, although I wouldn't be putting my money on it.
That's really interesting when you say about the prize money perspective there in the race that she probably should really be in on form and paper and everything. She actually would be earning less than for even finishing second in that rather than the great prize money, as always, put on then by Ascot for her to come over here. Long live the Mares division. Andrew, who do you like? Or is there a way to play it?
Not massively keen on the favourite. Willie Mullins has sent 15 runners over this season since the 1st of October in Britain. He's only had one winner. That was a 3-1 on favourite. He has horses beaten at 7-2 on, 6-5, 11-8, 7-4, 15-8, 2-1. He should have had about 4 wins based on those. So that's a slight doubt. She's never followed up a win, albeit some of those wins she's been running into the likes of Majborough and Sagino. So there's probably no, you can't read too much into that. But yeah, just at the prices and Willie Mullins' recent record in Britain, I'll take her on. I didn't like the second and third favourite either. Take No Chances always seems best in the warmer months. All her wins have come from late April to early November. She's 0 from 5 in the December, January, February period. So maybe she's not at her best in the depths of winter, even though it's not going to be as soft as we sometimes get at this time of year. Casta Nomento is a similar type. She seems best in spring or early autumn. And All for Glory is one I definitely want to take on as a sort of place lay. She was massively flattered by winning at Southwell on New Year's Day. You go and watch that Southwell meeting, watch all the hurdles races. It's fascinating. They'd line up 6 abreast. The horse who was widest of all would win. The second widest would finish second. The third widest would finish third. If you were anywhere near the inside rail, you didn't have a chance. The last hurdle race on the day, I think it was Olive Nicol. She was on one of the jollies, and the Twisted Davies had one who was well fancied. They were the only 2 horses whose jockeys hadn't, read the memo and didn't know that you couldn't be ridden around the inside. One of them's finished, tailed off, beat about 60 lengths. The other one's pulled up. Now, All for Glory was widest of all that day, probably flattered. So by process of elimination, other than the favourite, you've got Betty, who's won 6 of the 17 starts over hurdles, profit of over 50 quid, has finished second or third in 7 of the 11 defeats. She's consistent, likes right-handed tracks. She could go well. And the other one, Brendas Asking, whose last 4 runs right-handed, was produced a second, a first, a third, and a second. So I was going to sort of play each way or without the favourite, Betty and Brendas Asking.
Okay, so Betty is at 12-1 and Brenda's Asking, biggest price of all at 80-1 there as well. So each way plays in our opener there, the 140 at Ascot. Right, we're going to move on to the 155 at Haydock. We've gone from 1 7-runner Grade 2 contest to another 7-runner Grade 2 contest. This time the Supreme Trial, Rossington Main Novices Hurdle, 4-year odds and over, again, over just shy of 2 miles. And we have another odds-on favourite in here as well in Royal Infantry for the Skeltons, Andrew.
Yeah, all the each way thieves are gutted. There's all these odds-on favourites and 6 or 7 runner races.
Yeah.
You just need a couple of 500 to 1 shots in there to make that trip down to your local Ladbrokes to have a sneaky bet each way in cash, all the more worthwhile. I kept coming back to the favourite here, or Royal Infantry for the Skeltons. I was trying to find a big price alternative, couldn't. He won very easily over course and distance last time on soft ground. He was pulled out on good ground before that, although he did win his maiden hurdle on good ground, officially good ground at Chepstow. So loves the murder, winner on heavy and listed bumper at Newbury last February. So I think you look at his recent record below grade 1 level since joining the Skeltons, first. I think he's going to take a world of beating here at Royal Infantry.
He is far clear on ratings as well, isn't he? 135. I know we're talking about novice hurdlers at this stage of their career, but even so, Dave, he is setting the standard and then some. So 4 to 6 top price at the time of recording may not look a bad one, or does it?
No, probably not. It's one of those I just wouldn't necessarily want to be getting really stuck into these shorties in this type of division. I've got little doubt that this horse will win the race. Might be worth just thinking about with the Supreme market looking a bit windy. Everyone's sort of slating Salvo till Monday. Royal Infantry, I know this race doesn't have the best record, for like producing Cheltenham Festival winners, but we had Jonbon that won it recently. Neon Wolf only just went down ahead to Willoughby Court. Admittedly, that was the Neptune, but he's 33 to 1 for a Supreme hurdle. Obviously, if he goes and wins this, he'll be a lot shorter than that. So you might want to consider getting him board in for that instead of maybe betting him in here. But yeah, 4 to 6 probably isn't a bad price, but yeah, not my territory to be slamming into these sort of novice hurdlers, I'm afraid, but he should win.
Yeah, should win all the same, though. Like I say, probably not that betting perspective as such, but should really win. So just either play with straight battle, just watch and enjoy. Right, we're going to switch to Ascot again now for the 2:15 handicap chase. At least we've got 10 runners to go out then in this one. So the each way opportunities for this handicap chase, 5 rods and over 2 mile 5. Now we've got 2 horses who are being pushed out the weights by Hitman in here, the top weight off of 156. Good on Hitman, back to some more, Dave. So does he finish second again, and who does he finish second to? Or are you going to play him again?
Well, I don't know. This is a real good looking race, to be fair. Feels a little bit roguey with the kindest regards to all of the horses that are in it, because you've got like Scarface is starting to show a bit of that tendency in his last few runs, I think, where I'm not saying he's not necessarily going through it. He's either reached the ceiling of his handicapping, or he might be losing the love for the fight of in the finish. Phlegmatic's been a horse that's on the bit of the decline. He's been well supported. He's down to a mark now that I think is £5 lower than what he's won off before. He won last time, I think it was January this time 12 months ago, but it was at Kempton. So he's coming for a lot of support. But again, like he's not necessarily a rogue, but he's one of those that he's been tipped up on the show before, and he's not necessarily run a race. Bad is definitely a rogue. Hitman, we've talked about, is a bit of a rogue. I think the 2 of them have got 5 wins between them after 40 runs under rules, and none of them recently. Tedley's another one that I would put into that maybe possibly roguey type category, because where's the cheek pieces? He's hit the front a few times and then seemed to rally again after he's been headed. So it looks like it's a race that's fraught with danger. And I've not even talked about Kotmask or Martator that are towards the head of the market, or they're sort of vying for favouritism, 4 to 1 joints at the moment. Martator stepping back up in trip, I do think is a good idea. When he was a novice chaser, he won a couple of times over 2 mile 4 furlongs. So as much as he was doing his winning earlier this season on 2 mile 1, and it was on good ground, he does sort of want this trip anyway. So he deserves to be where he is. I just feel like maybe he's caught up with now by the handicapper, and Venetia's horses maybe aren't going so well as the months through the season go through. So I was definitely sort of torn with how I might play this race. I ended up just sitting with the fact that it would be a no bet, so I won't bore everyone with my analysis of loads of different horses in it. The one that I thought could be interesting was Tedley stepping back up in trip, because he ran behind Bo Balco. I think that was a day where he hit the front too soon. It wasn't the fact that he wasn't good enough, it was the fact that he hit the front too soon that he didn't get the job done there. He won over 2 mile 3.5 before then. Last time out when he was taking on Caliph de Burley again, he was just completely and utterly sort of outclassed and outpaced. That's my worry in here, when you have got the likes of Hitman that's like a 150s horse, and Martator that's trying to prove he's a 150s horse. Maybe Tedley would just get outpaced in here. So I don't know. I'll probably have some sort of novelty perm on all the dodgy ones. So like Bad, Hitman, Tedley, stick them in combinations. But it is worth noting, and everyone will see this by the time the video goes out, Phlegmatic is being smashed for this race. When they reopened the market, he was 12-1. He's as short as 9-2 now. He's 7-2. He's as short as in some places. So in a fiddly looking race where I didn't have a bet in there, the money's speaking volumes for Phlegmatic, and it may be that they know that he's going to win.
Yeah, like say he has been, hasn't he? I saw 11-1 there not too long ago. Now 13-2 now, rather than Tedley's gone the opposite way, and he's still available at 18-1 in a couple of places. But I like the idea of Dave playing a dodgy perm. That's just a whole different image I've managed to conjure up now from that. So Andrew, have you ever had a dodgy perm, and how do you also play this race?
Not since 1978, but that's another
Good to know.
Yeah, a cracking race. You can make a case for, back in the Kotmask Scarface straight forecast, as they finished 1-2 here last time. Phlegmatic was due to run at Kempton at the Lanzarote hurdle meeting, but that was abandoned. And of course, you think this is perhaps a little bit of an afterthought. And he hasn't won away from Kempton since October 2020, so that's the worry. He has run some okay races here. You can make a case when he was an each-way price at sort of 10-1 plus. Now, like Dave says, he's 7-2. You could happily leave him alone. Bad as an Uber punt, as German professional punters say. But I do remember he's always a good horse to back to finish exactly second. Those are markets that are available with some bookmakers like Coral and Skybet, or back him to finish second in computer straight forecast or turned exact as some of the principles. But I remember in the first time cheap pieces last season, he very nearly won here at Ascot, finishing second by a head in the field of 16. I kept opposing him in running, but unfortunately, all the profit I had to go on new trousers because I'd ruined mine after those squeaky bum moments in the last 50 yards. So, he'll probably finish second again. You can make a case for backing him each way and putting into lay short prices in running. So that's another angle for the race. But as for the selection, I'll go Martator. I know Venetian's not exactly been on fire this year so far. She hasn't had all that many runnings. We've lost a lot of races. I think she's had one winner from 14 in the last fortnight. Only one of those started as favourite, and that was one who won at Hereford the other day, despite hating the right-handed track, hanging left all the way around, showed lots of tenacity to win. So I wouldn't rule out any of her runners based on the form of the yard. And Martator, although only third at Kempton last time over 2 miles, did best of those to come from off the pace. As Dave said, won twice over 2.5, once at Sandown, once at Newbury. And it's 3 from 3 at Ascot. All the wins over 2 miles, won. But stepping up to 2.5 and the track where he's unbeaten in 3 starts, I'll go Martator.
Martator then 4-1, heading the way at the top of the market there. I'm going to take you on with his old foe Kotmask in here. Right, we're going to move on to the 2:30 now at Haydock. This is the Peter Marsh handicap chase. Premier handicap, 5 rods and over 3 mile, 1.5 furlongs. We've got a good old Royal Pagaille, the big teddy bear, back in here, Andrew. So does he win again?
Yeah, as a kind of turnout you'd expect for a handicap chase on Saturday in Britain. Now there's twice as many runners as you get in a whole load of them. You look at Windsor, there's not many races of each way betting there this weekend. So yeah, I mean, you got your flow chart for chases at Haydock. It basically says, is Royal Pagaille running? Yes or no? Yes. Move on to 2. How heavy is the ground? And the softer, the more you have on. And in this race in 2021, 2022, he's what's going to beat him. The obvious danger is Mr. Vango, but they're priced accordingly. I didn't like Trelawne because it's not his seasonal debut and he struggles to win outside of it. I Will Do It was laid out completely for the Welsh National. This is going to come too soon, I would imagine. Talking of Imagine was disappointing on his debut for Harry Derham. Harry Derham hasn't got a particularly good record at the second time of asking with horses he takes over from other yards, except the ones who won on stable debut. And you sort of Richmond Lake, you think, well, that's trained by Donald McCain, who seems to have forgotten how to train winners. Chambard's 100 years old, and you're thinking, well, there's 2 runners. I mean, you can make a case for backing Royal Pagaille and Mr. Vango both each way at 9-4 and 5-2, and with half a mile to go, the pair will be 30 lengths clear, and it's only if one of them falls, you're not going to draw on the each way part. But I think Royal Pagaille wins. Mr. Vango finishes second. There's a lot of weight between them. That will make it interesting. But I still think Royal Pagaille will win by 3/4 of a length with 30 lengths back to the third.
Oh, really? Yeah, those 2 to fall far clear then of the third. But yeah, Mr. Vango, I mean, he's what, one pound wrong then at the weights, which, much of a muchness even on this ground over this kind of a trip. But Royal Pagaille carrying 12, so Mr. Vango on 10 stone 2. So quite the weight difference, but Royal Pagaille still to come out on top for Andrew, Dave.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty good renewal, to be fair. It's like there's some big names in here because of the fact there's been a few defections or cancellations, should we say. And then, of course, like, you have to respect Royal Pagaille. The only time he's been beaten at Haydock was when a Plutard was doing a Plutard things. So it was no mean feat then. He got an RPR of 171, didn't he, for the Betfair Chase this year? That's the same figure he put up when he won his first Peter Marsh. But as you touched on, Kate, they're 2021 and 2022. The last couple have been cancelled because of frozen tracks. He is 11 now, and time waits for no man. And I know he was very good in that Betfair Chase, but we've seen Grey Dawn in after. It was a real brawler. Took it out of him going to Kempton on Boxing Day after. Now, look, I know Royal Pagaille probably came
Did
out.
he take it out of him, or did he just make a bad mistake and was never going after that?
Well, we'll find out, won't we? But I just mean there's enough in that run last time to say that he's an 11-year-old. He is carrying more weight than he's ever carried. It's a few pounds higher than when he won it a couple of years ago. And it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if it did take a little bit out of him. So I'm not saying that Royal Pagaille can't win this race, because he could underperform, I think, in this race and still be very, very close to winning this. But it does bring in one that Andrew doesn't like, which is Trelawne. That I think Kim Bailey, after he beat Iroko, he was interviewed after, and they said about this horse, you've always liked him, you got any plans for him? And he said, I've got a race in mind. They asked him what it was, and he said he didn't want to tell anyone. And it clearly wasn't Ascot last time out. But for him to make that comment at Haydock and then be entered in here where he steps him back up in trip, let's not forget Trelawne was sent off a shorter price than Chianti Classico that won the Ultima last year. And I know what Andrew's talking about with him, it's not the start of the season, but he won over hurdles first time up. Then he won after a break when it came back in May. That was over 3 miles over hurdles. Last season over fences, I would say, with the kindest regards to all trainers and the integrity to the sport, they weren't trying their best to win races with him because they had a big 3 mile handicap in the sights for him. Didn't work out in Cheltenham because obviously he fell very early on. They've come back and won a nice race at Haydock. This bad ground is desperately what he needs. It was too fast for him at Ascot. We were against him there. We both fancied Victorino, and rightly so. But I think Trelawne is handicapped to go very well in a race like this. And I do respect Mr. Van Gogh, but he's an absolute boat, isn't he? And he's going to be running against a 160s, like we're talking about, a Betfair Chase winner in Royal Pagaille, back-to-back Betfair Chase winner. Mr. Van Gogh is going to struggle to hold on to the coattails of these, whereas Trelawne is a quick enough horse. He's a 150s horse in his own right. These two, I think, will be the two that will pull clear, like Andrew's talking about. They'll be 30 lengths further back. There may be things staying on, but I don't doubt Trelawne's stamina. I think last season they just didn't expose it enough at that distance because they wanted to land a big pot with him. So
I'm quite surprised to see him running it. I thought they would go to Cheltenham for the Ultima again, fresh this time. Because his only non-seasonal debut win came after a break of 113 days. So I just thought, why are you running him after a break of 28 days?
Yeah, maybe. But the thing is, of this race, a lot of the winners have won this inside the last 30 days. I think most winners have come from the last 30 days. I do think that Trelawne's got a proper chance there. And like I say, Kim Bailey definitely hinted something after that race in Iroko that he had a target for him. This is worth £56,000. We've talked about the fact that it's not always got the biggest fields in there because everyone's a little bit scared of Royal Pagaille. I think this is some shrewd placement. He's 9-2 as well. I think for any horse, if you took Royal Pagaille, obviously they'd shorten up. But I think this is a target race for Trelawne. And like I say, he's 5-1 for an Ultima, which is like a 20+ runner field. Yet he can come running in here against just 7 rivals. Like Kate said, a few of them are at the handicap, a few of these are just out for a day out, and I think this is a chance for him to land a real decent pot. He jumped beautifully at Haydock last time. He was a ready winner over Iroko. I know the form of that doesn't necessarily look like it could be great with that horse not doing things after, but I'm adamant that they've targeted this race. I think 9-2 is a very generous price, especially if the field does hold up as the 8, because you could potentially play him each way, although there's no concerns about his stamina or anything. I think Trelawne's a great bet on Saturday.
Yeah, the only concern you ever have with Trelawne is just his attitude and whether he stays in a straight enough line going around bends. But like you say, no doubting his definitely that was actually his stamina, or the fact that, like say, his jumping coming to the fore now, ground should be fine for him. He's such a unit of an animal as well. It's just, yeah, Trelawne getting into his own head. But at 9-2 though, nice price to boot. Right, back to Ascot now for the 250 handicap hurdle. 4-year odds and over 2 mile 3. 4-1 the field in this one. Bo Zenith heading the way. So this is a bit more exciting to be getting involved with, Dave.
It is, yeah. And Bo Zenith was very eye-catching at Cheltenham, but twofold. He was very eye-catching because he got smashed in the betting in the last 5 or 6 minutes. 18s into as short as 30 to 2. I think he went off at 7 to 1. And then he was eye-catching in the finish because Luke Scott went clear on Mirabad. Loads of them were struggling in behind, but this horse was struggling to hang on to the coattails of horses that were going a slower pace than they needed to at 2 miles. But he stayed on an almost snatched second. So that was after a break of 610 days, I think it was. I'd imagine there's not very many people out there that didn't see how eye-catching he was in the finish, hence why he is a 7 to 2 favourite now, stepping back up in trip. He's never been outside the first 3 over hurdles, but that said, one of them was a 4-runner race where he came 3rd. But the fact that they supported him so much last time out is like a positive sign that they obviously think he's well handicapped, but it's also probably a sign that they really thought he was ready to do some damage first time up. So there's a tiny concern with that in there. We've talked about lots of lots of roguey horses in the last handicap at Ascot. We've got Goshen in here, haven't we? Who's coming in off the back of a win as well. Finally got his head back in front, and they got him to win over fences. The last time he won over hurdles was here, wasn't it? Over this distance, the Ascot hurdle on good ground when they always cited he needed heavy. So I'm not trying to make a case for him. I'm just saying that he's in here. But you've got Outer Belly that now has cheek pieces. I tipped him up last time out when Andrew gave us the winner in the race. He didn't look like he knew how to jump a hurdle. He was really slow, awkward all the way through the race. But he was another one that we couldn't see it in the finish, but must have been eye-catching because he was 20 plus lengths behind and only got beat a length in the end. Again, stepping up in trip would be a positive for him. But I'd be more forgiving or more expectant of Bo Zenith stepping forward for the run than I would be for Outer Belly. Like I say, the cheap pieces have been reached for, and Bo Zenith was having a significant layoff. So I think Bo Zenith's gone up £3. I think Outer Belly's gone up a couple. I think Bo Zenith deserves to be favourite. 4 to 1 top price, though, is probably skinny enough, I would say, when you've got the likes of Outer Belly, that even if he's a bit of a rogue, 6 to 1 top price he would fill the frame. Josh the Boss will be better on better ground. He was well fancied at Haydock, but it just came up too soft for him. So he's a silver trophy winner at Chepstow over the season. He's 9 to 1. Like, he could be an each way price. Camston has finished in front of him in that Haydock race. He's a horse that's probably not the best handicap, but he could be sort of in the frame. So I think it looks pretty competitive. But if, as much as I said last time, Outer Belly is very well handicapped, I also swore after that last race that I couldn't tip him up again because I think he is a bit of a dog. So I think if they're going to find a winner in this race, sadly, it is the favourite Bo Zenith. I say sadly because people don't want us to put up favourites, do they? But he could still be a 4 to 1 winner, and I think he will win.
Yeah, like I say, he has come in for significant support already, then hasn't he? But still available at 4 to 1, both Zenith at the time of recording. Yeah, Outer Belly. I think I napped him that day last time out. It's so weird. It's such a weird run, all in all. But he's 6 to 1 in here. And yeah, whether you can trust him or not remains to be seen. But we will see. Andrew.
Yeah, funny old race, this one. I find it quite a difficult one to sort of get a handle on. One I was sort of keen to propose was Outer Belly, who Harry Fry's. He's won from 28 in handicap company since the beginning of September, and his horses tend to go off short and just don't seem to do the business. Josh the Boss probably needs quicker ground, even though it will be quicker than it was at Haydock when he was a very disappointing 9th as a 3 to 1 favourite in that big handicap hurdle, and that race hasn't worked out particularly well. Georgie Girl I tipped up the other week in a race that didn't go ahead because she was running against her own sex in a small field. She doesn't hear. Aston Martini was another one who's had other targets in mares only company, but is being forced to run here because of abandonments. So the one I'm going to go for is Stoner's Choice, who I put up each way in my column last time and scraped 4th in an each way return at 28 to 1. That was here at this venue, when probably doing too much too soon, the conditional jockey's handicap chase. It was the run before that really caught the eye. That was the 4-runner 2 mile 5 per temps qualifier at Kempton, where 3 of the 4 runners were determined to cut out the running, went off like absolute lunatics, setting it up for Pyramid Place, who was massively flattered. Now, Stoner's Choice did clear best of those who disputed the lead, beating the next finisher by 24 lengths. That was the odds-on favourite. Jackpot Defoe of Paul Nichols, and the 4th in that race, beating 46 and a bit lengths, a 9 to 4 shot trained by Harry Derham. I'll put that up as a bet next time. Just got chinned by 3/4 of the length, went 18 to 1 at Doncaster. So Stoner's Choice. Again, the worry is there's other pace angles, and he might end up doing too much too soon. But although he's an old boy, 10 years old, the form of that per temps qualifier second was a great effort, and he might be able to sneak a place again if you can get on with those extra place firms.
Yeah, 33-1 as well. So do make sure for that. But yeah, 10-year-old now, as you say, but really interesting race. I was saying that 250 at Ascot. Right, the 305 at Haydock is a 0-140 handicap hurdle, 4-year-olds and over 3 miles. And again, we've got 4-1 the field in here. Punta del Este, who at least one of you, if not both of you, fancied for the abandonments last weekend, if I'm not wrong in saying that. So,
was that the Lanzarote hurdle, and was it a Dan Skelton horse due to be ridden by a jockey claiming an allowance, I think, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that was
the
it. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big price that day, but now he's 4-1 favourite. I say he comes from that Steel Ally race we're just talking about, the 2 mile 3 race, where you've had a few horses come out and be turned over at often shortish prices from that race. So yeah, I'm not usually keen at giving the prices. I'm still finding it very hard to back Tom Lacey horses. Tom Lacey is a trainer I've got a lot of time for. He's in his career, you could back every single runner he's sent out in a handicap hurdle and make a really good profit. He's got a phenomenal record. But this season, it just hasn't seemed to get going. And he had a couple of winners like before Christmas, and then it's dried up again. So I've still got a little bit of a question mark over the yard. Tiny Tetley is trained by our old friends, private detectives, Johnson and Hobbs. The interesting one about this one, last time out, he won at Taunton, showed good resolution to win by half a length. The last time he ran at Taunton before that, he finished 5th as the 9-4 favourite back in April of last year, when the trainer said the gelding was unsuited by the tight track. This shows how annoying following British racing is. Why has nobody on the day noted that comment from the last time he ran at the track, had them in afterward and said, how come you said he didn't like the tight track when he was 5th here last year, and now you're saying he likes it? So what, what's going on? You'd like to hear the question asked. I'm not claiming there's any skullduggery going on, but the only downside with Tiny Tetley is that he's never raced on anything other than a right-handed track. Possibly that's just down to geography, because he trained in the West Country, so Taunton, Wincanton and Este, the 3 tracks he's raced at are all local to him, so will he be able to cope going this way around? Good Luck Charm was one we liked for that mare's race that was abandoned at Kempton, I think it was. She's best going right-handed and running against her own sex. She goes left-handed against the boys here, so that's no help in particular. The Innox LN's quite interesting. You back all these LN horses on good to soft or softer going, you make a good profit, so I wouldn't be against that one. And even Fonzarelli, the ground's probably softer than ideal, but Rebecca Menzies has got a great record with the handicap hurdles in the month of January. You can normally back the yards runners in December and January and make a good profit. They had a disappointing December, but the recent signs are more encouraging. It's just that this one's been pulled out on deep ground before. So I'll go Innox LN for Lucinda Russell, but it's a tricky old race, this one. I'm not going to have a bet in it.
Very tricky, but like I say, if you had to put up a selection here and now, 14th one about Innox LN isn't a bad way to go, but really tricky race, says Andrew to play. Dave, did you have any stronger convictions?
Yeah, I do have a bit of a stronger conviction, to be fair. Like, as always, I want a bigger price on everything that I fancy, because I want to be able to say, this is the wrong price, it will shorten up. We've had a few of them happen in the last couple of weeks that have been abandoned. And obviously, Punta del Este was 25-1 for a Lanzarote hurdle, but it was a Lanzarote that he was going for. And as much as this is a class 3, it's a 0-140, but it's basically a 0-135. Especially when it comes to class of races, that Tiny Tetley that Andrews touched on last time, because I went and looked at the horse because I wanted to see what the detectives have got out this weekend. It beat a horse called Photonet, who's a real bad horse. I liked it when it was a juvenile years ago and made a big mistake with it there. But it was running in a class 3. The top weight in that race was rated 116, so it's £20 difference. So although it's the same sort of class race, like Andrew said, been running at Taunton, Exeter, Wincanton, they're not the caliber of running at like a premier racetrack like Haydock. That doesn't mean the horse can't go and win the race. I just mean it's going to be much tougher for horses like that. Whereas Punta del Este is coming from, not saying he would have been primed and all that sort of stuff to win a Lanzarote, but like Andrew said, the stats were suggesting that, Dan Skelton runners with a Tristan Durrell claiming £3 was positive. I made a bit of a form case for him as well from that race at Haydock, which I know Andrew's saying the form isn't necessarily working out too well, but it kind of is for a few of them. About 4 or 5 horses that finished in and around him are up £3 or £4, yet he's not gone up in the weights. And we know what it's like at Haydock. You don't want to be making up ground from the back. It's not the way that you're going to win races. Obviously, if you've got a running style and a preference, then you may have to do that. But what's interesting with this horse is they did used to ride him a bit more prominently, and Harry Skelton's now back on board. I think the fact that they're going up in trip for this opportunity, which, like I say, is a 0 to 140, but it's a much easier opportunity than the running in the Lanzarote. I think Harry Skelton's going to be bullish and confident off the front on this horse. And I think when he's been ridden prominently before, he's been fine. I think they will do that in this instance. The ground's obviously a lot different to what it was going to be if he'd have run last weekend, but I don't see that as being a problem for him. There's a teeny, tiny stamina concern with him, but not enough to put me off him. I think the 4-to-1 about him is decent. And with that potential slight stamina concern, if we're going to be worried about that, you still can get a fifth of the odds for 4 places. So you're only going to lose a small percentage of your money if he finds a couple that are too good, that are just better stamina laden than him. But I just think from a class perspective, Punta del Este is just going to slam these. So 4-to-1 looks an attractive each way proposition. But obviously, if I'm talking about backing a horse each way, I can't fancy it that much, can I?
Oh, it all depends, doesn't it? All depends. Price dictated, race dictated, all of the above. But Punta del Este, I think all three of us were keen on him in some sort of way in the Lanzarote last week. But Harry Skelton getting on board now. Of course, he is a significantly shorter price, but still a bit of a class angle in here. Right, our final scheduled race is the big one of the weekend. It is the Grade 1 Clarence House Chase. 5 rods and over 2 miles and half a furlong, comes up at 3:32. We get the matchup between Jonbon and Energumene. Of course, Edwardstone and Boot Hill are both in there as well at much bigger prices, but they've been falling on their heads more so than getting around of late. So Jonbon versus Energumene, Dave. It's harking back to the old Shishkin Energumene, isn't it? But Jonbon stepping into the fray this time around.
Yeah, and it's old bad Energumene now, and let's not forget, I know he's like a 2-time champion chaser, but he's 11, and I don't care what anyone says, you can be as positive as you like about performances. His heavyweight run was miles below what he was before then. He was getting weight from everybody, and they're getting weight from Dino Blue. That's why I made the case for the Christmas race. That hasn't particularly worked out. Banbridge probably would have beat him, I think, if he didn't get knocked off. I know he's gone and won a King George after, but you can't say that that's franking the performance of Energumene when Banbridge was giving him £10 at Energumene's optimum trip. So I don't think Energumene can beat Jonbon. The only way Jonbon for me gets beat is if he makes a howling mistake, and obviously you never go into a race expecting or hoping that a horse will do that. I think Jonbon's going to absolutely slap him up in here. Thing is, when I wrote this, the market had him as like a 2-zon poke, and I was right in that the market tells you all you need to know. Energumene's 5-2, Jonbon's 1-2. Edwardstone has fallen a couple of times, hasn't he, in a few of his starts, and in between then he's been behind Jonbon. So I just looked at this and thought he's an old horse as well. Only Jonbon can win this race. But I didn't think he'd be drifting out. He's available at 8 to 11 at the time of recording. And the fact that there's a bit of money for Energumene, I don't know why that is. Maybe Tony Bloom's trying to get a few quid on before Cheltenham. But if Jonbon does continue to drift, I will actually be getting stuck into him. So he's 8 to 11 at the time of recording. If he starts getting real close to even money, I will definitely be back in Jonbon, because I think he's only got to jump round to win this. And I know he made that big mistake at Cheltenham last year. And I think if Nico de Boinville was riding him and not James Bowen, maybe they wouldn't have carried on riding him all the way through to the finish, because it was a race-ending error that he made. But he only just got beat last year by the 10-year-old Elixir. And that's when he made a race-ending error. He can't afford to do that against the likes of Energumene, but I don't think he'll do it. I think he's jumping better than ever. I think he's on an upward curve, and I don't see how Jonbon gets beat. So, like I say, he was 1-2 when I started writing this. I didn't think he'd even be the slightest bit of a betting proposition. But if he gets anywhere closer to even money, like even if he was 4-5, I'd quite happily get stuck in.
Yeah, the only reason I was not going to nap him is because I was expecting 1-2. That's kind of the biggest price there really about him in here. But like you say, just an ever so slight bit of a weakness about him since the time of declarations and about Jonbon. But yeah, again, the youngest horse in the race, he is a 9-year-old now, but just continues to win, doesn't he? So Andrew, can you get him beat?
No, 19 runs under rule, 16 wins, 3 seconds. Energumene doubts that the second run after a long break that he could bounce off that, and it wasn't a supersonic performance anyway. And so yeah, you look at it, you think 11 or 8 on's quite a good price really. So I certainly wouldn't put you off taking that sort of price about him. The only way I think I'd play the race is to for Energumene to bomb out completely. So play Jonbon to beat the other two and compute a straight forecast.
Oh, okay, so at least there is a betting angle in there anyway, if you're not just willing to play Jonbon, even at that current price, which all three of us agree looks very fair now. But yeah, Energumene then have that potential blowout. Anything from anywhere else? That's cleared up the Grade 1 Clarence House Chase then. So Andrew, I'll go back to you, please, because we do have that earlier on ITV televised race. Do you want to look at that?
Yeah, 10:15 at Lingfield, 2 mile handicap, low grade stuff. But there's a horse called Upepo, trained by Tony Carroll, who's had 5 runs on the poly track at Lingfield, 4 wins and a third. Now, the third was in that bizarre apprentice handicap won by Certain Style, the 28-1 outsider of the entire field, who the other jockeys just ignored and allowed to win unchallenged by half the track. And he only just lost out on second place that day. He would have been second had Mason Bartel not gone down the inside the challenge. So really, he's unlucky not to be unbeaten in 5 starts at Lingfield. So that's the angle for him. He's drawn wide, but that's not a bad thing. As long as he doesn't get too close to the inside rail, he'll be tucked in and get some cover. The 11:15 at Lingfield, No Go's Dream is running. He tends to finish second all the time. Doesn't matter what kind of race he runs in. So let's say Skybet and Coral offer bets on horses to finish exactly second. So that will be the angle there. And then a couple more. Ascot 105 and Sam has got a fantastic record in December and January. I think I mentioned that before an abandoned meeting recently. He could go well at the big price. And finally, the 340 at Haydock, Excitations. Missed out on his intended run at Sandown the other week. He's won second or third time out every the last 4 seasons. This will be his 3rd run of the season after 2 placed efforts so far. In the same race, Prairie Wolf. This is Sue Smith, January qualifier on that angle. The horse needs a few runs before hitting peak form, so expect more from Prairie Wolf this time.
I get loads to go at then. And just as a note, for that 10:15 at Lingfield, that really early start with Pepper was 16-1. I've got a price about him at least. So nice ways to play it. Dave.
Oh, I didn't think that horse would be 16-1 because when Andrew mentioned it earlier in our little WhatsApp, I remember that race from last time. So that's an interesting one. There's a couple that are worth mentioning. Just quickly touch on the 12 o'clock at Navan because this is a rated novices hurdle where you have to be rated under 135. Again, I touched on the supreme windy market at the beginning of the show. I'm not saying that we're going to find a supreme winner in here, but I think Twitter might get excited if we do see a good performance. There's lots of nice types in here. Ballygunner Castle is one of those. Andrew mentioned that horse when we were doing our Christmas preview. He was 2nd favourite behind Salvatore Mundi for a Future Champions Novice Hurdle, a Grade 2 event, and he's running in this. So he's going to be a short price in there. James's Gate's a horse I'm interested in, though. Now switched to Martin Brazil. Was a good winner over hurdles first time up this season. Last year had a couple of hurdle runs, but was coming back after a 600+ day break. He'd run 3rd behind Facile Vega in that champion bumper a few years back. So while he's a bit of an older horse, Mark Walsh has been booked to ride this horse, and I think he might be sort of a double figure price. So I'll be interested in him, and that race is worth watching anyway because Better Days Ahead came 2nd in it last year, so you might see some festival clues from the horses in behind. I think you will. This year's renewal looks pretty good. Then just quickly continue with a bit of Cheltenham talk. You've got Lulamba runs in the first race at Ascot, the juvenile that's been backed into favouritism for the Triumph, so you want to go and see how that horse gets on. Going to be long odds on. It's got nothing to beat, so it should just be an absolute easy performance. And then I need to mention this horse, even though I don't really want to, but it's going to happen anyway. Oh My Johnny runs in the 12:45. We've seen the detectives have been solving crime after crime week in, week out recently. They're in incredible form. It's Scott Spirits Bay in there that was due to run against him as well when they were both entered up at Sandown. He was supported, so I'm hoping there might be a bit of a price, but I'm happy to get stuck into Oh My Johnny. He won't be the price we talked about on the show last time. As long as he's bigger than 2-1, I will be back in Oh My Johnny because I think this horse is seriously well handicapped. So there's a few earlier on Saturday.
Yeah, a horse that seems to have been like a theme throughout the last few weeks and of this show as well. So good to mention him. Right, Dave, I'll go back to you, please. Your nap of this weekend.
Oh My Johnny in the 12:45 at
There you
Ascot.
go. To be fair, that was handy, wasn't it, really? Andrew, your nap, please.
Given those prices, I'll go for Upepo 16-1. I think it's 14-1 with Skybet 5 places. And although he hasn't won over the 2-mile trip, I think it will be within his stamina compass. So Upepo.
16-1 as well. Nicely done. You know, the temptation is so real to go for Jonbon and the Clarence House Chase at this point, given that price. But I'm not going to do it. I'll only get grief. So I'm going to go for a second favourite instead with Kotmask then in the 2:15 at Ascot, that 2-mile 5 handicap chase. Right, that is everything from us on this week's show. It's felt a lot more calm, like we've known exactly what has been going on this weekend to look forward to. So hopefully all continues to play ball and we do get all of the racing this weekend as expected. But lads, a big thank you for all of your hard work as per usual. Big thank you to you for watching, and we'll catch up with you again next week.